Hare Krishna devotees. So many people online today. Welcome, Hare Krishna. And here in person we have Bhakta Eze and Narayan. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudhirayat. Before reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, and to Narayan, which is the superiormost human being, and to Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto the author, Srila Vyasadev. So today we are reading from the second canto, the Cosmic Manifestation, from the chapter 7, entitled Spiritual Incarnations with Specific Purpose. And from my understanding is that we are on text 46. Today someone else was supposed to give class and then I stepped in. So I'm very happy because I love the verse. So you can repeat after me. Te Vai Vidanti Atitaranti Cha Devamayam Shri Shudra Una Shabaram Api Papajiva Yadi Adbhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shiksha Kriyajana Api Kim U Shrutatharana Ye Deva Vidantya Titaranti Chadeva Mayam Shri Shudra Una Shabara Pipapa Jiva Yadyad Bhuta Kama Parayana Shila Shikshas Tiryak Jana Pikimu Shuttadaranaye Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadeva Mayam Shri Sudha Una Shabarama Pipapa Jivam Yad Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas Tiryak Jana apikim ushutadaranaye.
Tiryajana Pikimushu Tadaranaye.
Devai vidantya titaranti cha devamayam.
Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam.
Shri Shuddha Unna Shabara Pipapa Jivam.
Vishuddhahuna Shabara Pipapa Jiva.
Yad Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas.
Yadya Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shiksha.
Tiryajana Pikimu Shuddhadaranaye.
Tiryajana Pikimushu Tadaranaye.
Chant.
Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam.
Devai Vidanta Titaranti Chadevamayam.
Vishuddhahuna Shabara Pipapa Jiva.
Shri Shuddha Una Shabara Apipapa Jiva.
Yadyat Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shiksha.
Yad Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas.
Tiryajana Pikimu Shrutadharanaye.
Tiryajanam Apikim Ushutadaranaye.
Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam.
Devai Vidyanti Tiravanti Chadevamayam.
Sri Shudra Suna Shabara Pipapa Jiva.
Shri Shuddha Una Shabara Apipapa Jiva.
Yan Yan Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shaksha.
Yadya Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas.
Tiryajana Pikimu Shutradharanaye.
Tiryajana Apikim Ushutadaranaye. Someone online would like to chant?
Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam.
Devai Vidyanti Tiravanti Chadevayayam.
Sri Sudra Una Shabara Apipapa Jiva. Sri Sudra Una Shabara Apipapa Jiva. Yad Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas. Yad Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas. Tiryajana Pikimu Shutadaranaye. Tiryajana Pikimu Shutadaranaye. Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam. Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam. Sri Sudrahuna Shabara Apipapa Jiva. Sri Sudrahuna Shabara Apipapa Jiva. Yadya Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas. Yadya Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas. Tiryajana Apikim Ushutadaranaye. Tiryajana Apikim Ushutadaranaye.
Devai Vidyanti Atiranti Chadeva Mayam.
Devai Vidantya Titaranti Chadevamayam.
Sri Shudra Huna Shabara Apipapa Jiva.
Shri Shudra Una Shabara Apipapa Jivaham.
Yad Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas.
Yadya Bhuta Krama Parayana Shila Shikshas.
Tiryajana Apikim Ushtutra Dharanaye.
Tiryajana Pikim Ushutadaranaye. Te.
Hey,
Such persons
Such persons,
by
by
undoubtedly,
undoubtedly,
Vedanti,
Vedanti,
do know,
do know,
Atitaranti,
Aditaranti,
surpass,
surpass,
Cha,
Cha,
also,
also,
Devamayam, the
Devamayam,
covering energy of the Lord,
the covering energy of the Lord,
Stri,
Sri,
such as woman,
such as woman,
Shudra,
Shudra,
the laborer class of men,
the laborer class of men,
Una,
Una,
the mountaineers,
mountaineers,
Shabara,
Shabara,
the Siberians,
the Siberians,
or those lower than the Shudras,
or those lower than the Shudra,
Api,
Although
although Papajiva,
Papa Jiva,
sinful living beings,
sinful living beings,
Yadi,
Yati,
provided,
provided,
Adbhuta Krama,
Adbhuta Prana,
one whose acts are so wonderful,
one whose acts are so wonderful,
Prayana,
Prayana,
those who are devotees,
those who are devotees,
Shila,
Shila,
behavior,
behavior,
Shiksha,
Shiksha,
trained by,
trained by,
Tiryakjana,
Tiryakjana,
even those who are not human beings,
even those who are not human beings,
Api,
Api,
also,
also,
Kim,
Kim,
what,
what,
you,
who,
to speak of,
to speak of,
Shruta Dharana,
Shruta Dharana,
those who have taken to the idea of the Lord by hearing about him,
those
those who have taken to the idea of the Lord by hearing about him,
yea,
yea,
those.
those,
Translation: surrendered souls, even from groups leading sinful lives, such as women, the laborer class, the mountaineers, and the Siberians, or even the birds and beasts, can also know about the science of Godhead and become liberated from the clutches of the illusory energy by surrendering unto the pure devotees of the Lord and by following in their footsteps in devotional service. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sometimes there are inquiries as to how one can surrender unto the Supreme Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 1866, the Lord asked Arjuna to surrender unto him, and therefore a person unwilling to do so question where God is and to whom they should surrender. The answer to such a question or inquiries is given hearing very properly. The personality of Godhead may not be present before one's eyes, but if one is sincere in wanting such a guidance, the Lord will send a bona fide person who can guide one properly back home, back to Godhead. There is no need of material qualification for making progress on the path of spiritual realization. In a material world, when one accepts one particular type of service, he is required to possess some peculiar type of qualification also. Without this, one isn't fit for such a service. But in a devotional service of the Lord, the only qualification required is surrender. Surrendering oneself is in one's own hand. If one likes, he can surrender immediately, without delay, and that begins his spiritual life. The bona fide representative of God is as good as God himself. Or, in other words, the loving representative of the Lord is more kind and more easy to approach. A sinful soul cannot approach the Lord directly, but such a sinful man can very easily approach a pure devotee of the Lord. And if one agrees to put himself under the guidance of such a devotee of the Lord, he can also understand the science of God and can also become like the transcendental pure devotee of the Lord and thus get his liberation back to Godhead, back home for eternal happiness. So realization of the science of Godhead and relief from the unnecessary, useless struggle for existence are not at all difficult for the willing candidate, but they are very difficult for persons who are not surrendered soul, but but only simple, profitless speculators. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyana Jala Shlakaya Shakshod Miletan Jnatasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Vadupistam Shtapitam Yena Bhutali Swayamupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadam Tikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadutam parijana saita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitam Cha E Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpata Ubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvesesha Shunyavadi Paskachadeja Tarine. Text 46. Surrendered souls, even from group leading sinful lives, such as women, the laborer class, the mountaineers and the Siberians, or even the birds and beasts, can also know about the science of Godhead and become liberated from the clutch of the illusory energy by surrendering unto the pure devotee of the Lord and by following in their footsteps in devotional service. I couldn't see the time on his, it's a Macintosh computer, so I was asking my roommate. So, what a beautiful verse and what a beautiful purport. It gave me opportunity to speak about Srila Prabhupada, which is so wonderful. So, I love the purports, and Srila Prabhupada said, all we need to do is surrender. All we need to do is to be sincere and surrender. And then Srila Prabhupada put the question, well, how one can surrender, because Lord Krishna is said to Arjuna, Sarvadhamam parityajya mamikam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma suchaha. Say, abandon all variety of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all evil and reaction. Do not fear. So one can say, okay, well, that's very nice. The Lord said to Arjuna, and he tells us to just abandon all kind of religion and just surrender unto him. And how do we do that? And who is that person we are supposed to surrender to? Because we can be very confused about that too. And so Srila Prabhupada, he said, well, it's very simple. It's answered in this verse. It's all responded to. And it's responded to by surrendering to the pure devotee of the Lord. The Lord sent his messenger all the time. He does that because the Lord is very, very eager, way more than we are eager, for the conditioned soul to come back to him. Way more Like if we had like a drop of the eagerness of Krishna wanted us to come back to Godhead, we will be very well situated. And so Srila Prabhupada says, sincere soul, if someone is sincere, then Krishna will reciprocate and will send that pure devotee that is going to help that sincere soul. And then Srila Prabhupada explained how there is no need for any qualification for that. And that in a material world, when we want to do something, the quality of what we need to be perfect in order to have an outcome. And in order to be perfect, we need to have the qualification to do it. And even if we endeavor a lot, unless there is an outcome, then there is no real gain. In contrary to spiritual endeavor, in Bhagavad Gita, verse 240, said like, even a slight endeavor in this devotional service can save one from the greatest type of fear. So even if we don't make it, even if we are not achieving the goal, prayojana, it doesn't matter, because even a slight effort in that direction is kind of accumulating and going towards our spiritual bank account. So that's Srila Prabhupada, he hints there that it's a really big difference between a material endeavor and a spiritual endeavor. And he also said that there is no material qualification. There is no material qualification for devotional service. And in fact, one can have all the qualities. One can have all the qualities, or amazing qualities, and be capable and rich and famous and beautiful, intelligent. And if all those qualities are not used to fulfill the purpose of human life, then kind of they are useless. Because what is the point? At the end of life, that person, the rich and the famous, they are going to die. The successful, they are going to die too. They are going to disappear. So what's the point of all that, all our qualities, if they are not engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord? And I found a funny verse. I don't know if I will find it again. I found a funny verse from Chanakya Pandit. Of course, I don't find it. Let's see if I find it here. Yeah, it's a funny verse from Chanakya Pandit. Chanakya Pandit is a Brahman. Srila Prabhupada liked to quote Chanakya Pandit. Chanakya Pandit, he was so clear about the purpose of human life, and also he was so clear about his duty as a Brahman to speak the truth, that even so, the king wanted to give him lavishly, wanted to give him everything he wanted. Chanakya Pandit is choose to live outside of the gate of the city in a hut. Why? To not be contaminated by any material, anything. Like he wanted to speak the truth, and he wanted to make sure that he doesn't get contaminated by facility, comfort, easiness, society, friendship, and love, all those things. So I will read that verse because it connects with what Srila Prabhupada is saying about no qualities. He says, even persons who are born in a high family and were endowed with youth and beauty do not appear splendid if they are devoid of knowledge. Just as even the beautiful flower of Kim's sukkah tree are not very splendid if they are devoid of fragrance. So he compares the people with a lot of qualities to a flower without fragrance. Flower without fragrance can be very beautiful, but what is the use of such a flower? And so for spiritual life, this verse says we don't need anything. We don't need any material qualification. We don't need to be beautiful, famous, rich, intelligent, any of that. And Srila Prabhupada said, someone who is sincere is going to receive a devotee, is going to receive a spiritual master. And it said that with a spiritual master, like Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayati Game, Yatri pa tamam vande shigu dinatarinam. That's a verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes in one of his letters. He said, I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, the deliverer of all fallen souls, whose mercy turned dumb into eloquent speakers and enables the lame to cross mountains. So with the spiritual master help, we don't need any qualification. And in reading Prabhupada's biography, I usually read biography. In the evening time, I have my reading when I retire to my bedroom. I have my reading in my office and I have my reading in my bedroom. Anyway, when I retire in the evening, I usually read Krishna book. I read Krishna book again and again. I just cycle around Krishna book. But once in a while, I stop my cycling of Krishna book to read the biography of Srila Prabhupada. And in those biographies, there is so many fun pastime of young people, young hippies, with really no qualification, with practically no knowledge, who are able to move mountains, who are able to speak eloquently, who are able to build big temples, who are able to do tasks that, from the material point of view, they will never have been able to manifest or do those tasks, like impossible tasks that somehow, with the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, through the mercy of Prabhupada, they are able to perform, editing book, like all of them. They didn't have any degree in what they were asked to do, doing accounting and becoming like building big temples, and they didn't have the degrees. They didn't go to university. What they had is a firm faith in their spiritual master. And when the firm faith in the spiritual master is there, then even a dumb man can speak, and even a person who cannot, a lame person, can walk. So that's an example. Also, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, Arjuna shows the same thing, and I spoke with that about that in another class. How Arjuna, the fighter of the battlefield Kurukshetra, he fought very, very impressive warriors. We see in the chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita, which we will discuss a little later today. 12 to 2 today is our Bhagavad Gita class. How Arjuna fought like his teacher, his grandfather. He fought Karna, he's like really great fighter who were in a sense equal or even stronger than he was. And he fought all of them and he was victorious in battle. Why? Because he was under the guidance of his spiritual master, who happened to be Krishna. And then later on, Krishna left the planet. And then when he left behind all his queens in Dwarka, and all the queens in Dwarka were unprotected. So Arjuna took on himself to protect the wife of Dwarka and to bring them to Hastinapur. And on the way there, he had, he was like himself with some of his army. They were attacked by Daikot. So they were attacked by low-class men with sticks, and Arjuna was defeated. Why? Because he didn't have the Shakti anymore of the Lord, of his spiritual master. So with the full surrender to the spiritual master, then that's what's required. And then Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, he explained how the spiritual master is more merciful than Krishna. The spiritual master can receive any sinful man. A sinful man cannot approach Krishna. If we are entangled in the material illusory energy of the Lord, there is no way that we can approach the spiritual energy of the Lord without the help of a via media to the spiritual world. And the via media to the spiritual world is the spiritual master, because the spiritual master is purely spiritual, and he accepts to come here. For what purpose? for only one purpose, the purpose of delivering all the conditioned soul and nothing else. And I was thinking that there is no Saturday morning class without a reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I'm going to go there because it's our favorite pastime, Saturday morning. So I'm going to read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19. The Lords instruct Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami, he left his job, he left his position, he left everything to find Lord Chaitanya. And then finally he found Lord Chaitanya in Prayag. And there is this famous verse, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayati. Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratuse Namaha. So like Srila Rupa Goswami, as soon as he saw Lord Chaitanya, he fell on the ground flat. And he recited like he was the most magnanimous incarnation, because you give what no other incarnation ever gave. You give freely love of God. And then Srila Rupa Goswami, he stayed in Prayag with the Lord. And then for 10 days, the Lord constantly instructed Srila Rupa Goswami, so much so that that's also a relationship guru-disciple. You see, Lord Chaitanya, of course, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he takes the form of the guru, like Krishna instructed Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And Srila Rupa Goswami, in the same way, he was a magist, he was a politician, he was working for the government. I don't know what he was doing, but because of the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, he became an erudite and a philosopher, and he wrote extensive literature to guide us. And to guide spirit soul to go back to Godhead. And his writing is very, very elaborate, and same thing, he got the power, he got very empowered by the Lord, and we are going to read about that right now. So it's Madhya Lila, chapter 19, and we are going to start on text 136. I'm not going to read for most verses. I'm not going to read the Bengali. Okay. So Lord Chaitanya said. So Lord Chaitanya is starting to speak to Srila Rupa Goswami. They are going to stay 10 days together. My dear Rupa, please listen to me. It is not possible to describe devotional service completely. Therefore, I'm just trying to give you a synopsis of the symptom of devotional service. The ocean of the transcendental mellow of devotional service is so big that no one can estimate its length and breadth. However, just to help you test it, I'm describing but one drop. In this universe, there are limitless living entities in 8,400,000 species, and all are wandering within the universe. So living entities are wandering. We are wandering. We have been wandering from time immemorial. And so I want us to put ourselves in that place of consciousness that's who we are speaking about, is we as the soul. The length and breadth of the living entity is described as 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair. This is the original subtle nature of the living entity. That's how tiny we are. And because we are so tiny, we are infinitesimal. That's why we have a tendency to get covered. We get covered because we are a small part and parcel of the Lord, 1/10,000 of the tip of the hair. That's how big we are. And so we can imagine like what desire created such a huge body around that tiny soul. Mm. If we divide the tip of a hair into 100 parts and then take one of these parts and divide it again into 100 parts, that very fine division is the size of but one of the numberless living entities. They are all chit kana, particular spirit, not matter. So all those living entities are tiny. They are not matter. We are not matter. We are tiny, part and parcel. If we divide the tip of the hair, Lord Chaitanya is kind of going into it, mathematics. If we divide the tip of the hair into 100 parts, and then take one part or divide this into another 100 parts, and then that 10,000 parts is the dimension of the living entity. This is the verdict of the Shiv Vedic mantras. And then it's quoted Bhagavatam 11:16-11. Among minute particles, I am the living entity. That's from the Bhagavatam 11 canto. Oh Lord, so Lord Chaitanya continues. Oh Lord, and is quoting this time the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-30, which was, I was reading that last night, personified Veda. The personified Vedas, there is a beautiful chapter in a Bhagavat, in a Krishna book, and I encourage you all to read it because it really, like the question of Maharaj Parikshit, it's so connected with us. That chapter starts with Maharaj Parikshit say, how can we touch upon spiritual matter when all we have to touch it with is our material mind, our material senses? So that's the response is the chapter entitled Prayer by the Personified Veda. So here it's quoted from, Oh Lord, also, so the Personified Veda are speaking to the Lord. In fact, the Personified Veda, they speak to Garbhodakashayi Vishnu when he wake up from his slumbers. Like we say, like kings, they don't wake up with an alarm clock, they wake up with people praising him. Oh, you're so beautiful, you're so wonderful, you can conquer so many lands. Oh, king, wake up now and do your duty, like that. They don't have an alarm clock, they have servants which just praise them, and then they wake up being praised that way. Maybe we should make recordings like that in the morning. That will be maybe easier than having an alarm clock waking up. Anyway, so the personified Vedas, they are the alarm clock of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. That's who they are. So they say, oh Lord, although the living entity who have accepted material bodies are spiritual and unlimited in number, if they are all perverting, there will be no question of their being under your control. If they are accepted, however, as particle of the eternal existing spiritual entity, as part of you, who are the Supreme Spirit whole, we must conclude that they are always under your control. If the living entities are simply satisfied with being identical with you as spiritual particles, then they will be happy being controllers of so many things. The conclusion that the living entities and the Supreme Personality of Godhead are one and the same is a faulty conclusion. It is not a fact. And then Lord Chaitanya continues. The unlimited living entities can be divided into two divisions, those who can move and those who cannot move. Among those living entities that can move, there are birds, aquatics, and animals. Like, in our verse, there is also birds being quoted. And Lord Chaitanya continued. Also, the living entities known as human beings are very small in quantity. That division may be still further subdivided, for there are many uncultured human beings like Mlecha, Pulindas, Bondas, and Shabaras. So something in our verse, we speak about the Shabaras, so very uncultured, and that's us. Like that's us in this incarnation. We are all part of the uncultured living entities, human being, and that's really amazing. It's such a glorification of Srila Prabhupada that, like we are part of the uncultured human being. We have no culture. We have not learned to follow the Vedas, to be regulated, to be disciplined. We are born in the West, in Mleccha family. Among human beings, those who are followers of the Vedic principles are considered civilized. Among those, almost half simply give lip service while committed all kind of sinful activity against this principle. Such do not care for the regulative principle. So the civilized human beings are those who follow the regulative or regulation of the Veda. And even there, Lord Chaitanya said, most of them is just like lip service, or at least half of it is just lip service, because they are not really sincerely following the regulative principle. Among the followers of Vedic knowledge, most are following the process of fruitive activity and distinguishing between good and bad work. Out of many such sincere, fruitive actors, there may be one who is actually wise. So even those who follow, who are cultured, follow the Veda, they kind of get distracted within the Veda, and then they really use the Veda for material aggrandizement, really. Out of many millions of such a wise man, one may be actually liberated mukta. And out of many millions of such liberated person, pure devotee of Krishna, is very difficult to find. So here we have a parallel with Bhagavad Gita, where it said out of many millions of people, one will find the truth, like that. And I'm continuing. Lord Chaitanya is continuing. Because the devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruitive workers desire material enjoyment, jnanis desire liberation, and yogis desire material opulence. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. So Lord Chaitanya said, okay, so many people follow the Veda, and so there is a jnanis, one like Sarvabhauma Madhacharya, who have a lot of knowledge of the Vedas. They can recite the Vedanta Sutra. They can debate for hours, but they are all the recipient of bad logic. Krishnadas Kaviraj says. And then there is the Gyanis, and then there is the Karmis who follow the Vedas to Karma Kanda, for fruitive activities. And then there is the yogis who want to have mystic power, some kind of material opulence in the different ways. And then, Lord Chaitanya, he said, like, they cannot be peaceful. They are lusty. There's still lust there. And then Lord Chaitanya continued. Oh, great sage, out of many millions of materially liberated people who are free from ignorance, and out of many millions of siddhas who have nearly attained perfection, there is hardly one pure devotee of Narayan. Only such a devotee is absolutely, completely satisfied and peaceful. Anya abhilasita sunyam jnana karma anyavitam anukulingash Krishna nushiladam bhakti utama. So pure devotional service is going to be free from jnana and yoga, fruitive activities, and is going to be without motivation, without attention, but only one intention is to please the Lord, to be favorable to the Lord. And then here's a verse I wanted to come to. So I'm landing to the verse where I wanted to go. Brahmanda Brahmitikona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prashadipai Bhaktilata Beach. So that's it's a verse that Srila Prabhupada often quotes, and that gives import of the purport that Srila Prabhupada gave us here. According to their karma, all living entities are wandering throughout the entire universe. Some of them are being elevated to the upper planetary system, and some are going down into the lower planetary system. Out of millions of wandering living entities, one who is very fortunate. Out of millions of living entities, one who is very fortunate gets an opportunity to associate with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Krishna. By the mercy of both Krishna and the spiritual master, such a person receives the seed of the creeper of devotional service. So here we see that the same point that Prabhupada make in his purport is that by the grace of Krishna, Yasa Prashado, Bhagavat Prashado, like, by the grace of Krishna, we receive the spiritual master, and Yasa Prashado is only by the grace of the spiritual master can we get to Krishna. And there is no other way for us to get to Krishna, but by the via media of surrendering to the instruction of the spiritual master, to regardless how sinful we are, it says in that verse, regardless how fallen we are, regardless our material qualification, we don't need any material qualification. Like the Brahman in Lord Chaitanya's time, he was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and everybody was laughing in the village. They were laughing. And then Lord Chaitanya passed by that Brahman, and the Brahman, he was reading the Bhagavad Gita upside down because he was illiterate. He didn't know how to read. He didn't even know how to read. And Lord Chaitanya said, what are you doing here? And he said, I'm reading Bhagavad Gita. And then the Brahman, he said, like, Lord Krishna is so merciful that is driving the chariot of Arjuna. How beautiful and merciful my Lord is. And the Brahman also explained how, because his spiritual master instructed him to read daily the Bhagavad Gita, he was doing that. So Lord Chaitanya, he noticed, your understanding of the Bhagavad Gita is complete. Is complete because you follow strictly the order of your spiritual master. And even so, he couldn't read. He had understood the complete import of the Bhagavad Gita, as described like that. So let's see. I have so much more material, I said. So we can look a little bit at the qualification of the disciple and just a little bit surrender. The only qualification, Prabhupada said, it's in our hand. He said the only qualification is surrender, and in a purport he said it's in our own hands. So in a sense, there is no excuse. There is no excuse. It's in our own hand. And the spiritual master is non-different than Krishna. Sakshat Daridvena Shamasha Sastre Uktastatas Bhavyata Eva Sadbi Kintu Prabhu Ya Priya Eva Tasya Vandego Jana Avindam. We sing that in the morning. And that the spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all the revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lord's feet of such a spiritual master, who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there was a gathering of Naimisharanya of all the sages headed by Sonaka Rishi. And then they asked through some pastime with Lord Balaram, Sutta Goswami was asked to preside that gathering of the sages of Naimisharanya. And then the sages of Naimisharanya, of course, before they start hearing from the spiritual masters, they started to glorify these qualities. And then there is a verse that really highlights the quality of someone, a disciple, and really the disciples that become qualified to transform the life of many. Is the sage of Naimisharanya glorifying Sutta Goswami, he said, and because you are submissive, your spiritual master have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them. So the gentle disciple, so it shows a submissive attitude. Tadvini Pranipatina Sevaya. So, one should approach the spiritual master and learn from that self-realized soul. We should learn the truth by submissive inquiry. So the spiritual life is based on submissiveness, and that submissive inquiry, that submissive attitude is the basis for surrendering to the instruction of the spiritual master. So in that verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it describes the 8,400,000 species of life. And we have wandered probably through all of them. We have wandered through life after life after life within the cycle of birth and death. And then it's a boon already to come to the human form of life. Because in a human form of life only can we ask questions. What is the purpose of human life? Who am I? Where am I going? Where am I from? Like Damayanti's video. Like, yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. If I just don't know where I'm going, it doesn't make sense to not ask those questions. And of course, spiritual life starts when we ask those questions, and that's the boon of human life. And within that boon of human life, then the greatest boon is to get in contact with the pure representative of the Lord, who is none different than Krishna. And I was meditating on that when I was chanting japa, and I was thinking that everyone, with no exception, everyone who come in contact with someone who have read Srila Prabhupada's books, anyone who come in contact with Srila Prabhupada's books, anyone who hears the mantra from someone who have heard from Srila Prabhupada's books, anyone who is in contact with that movement of Lord Chaitanya, headed by the captain, the great captain of Srila Prabhupada, heading that captain. Anyone who is born in that movement, anyone who touch in any way a plate of prasadam or anything, all those are fortunate souls, as described in that verse. The great, everyone get the great fortune to get in contact with that pure representative of Krishna. And then they have the choice to accept their spiritual master or not. It's about accepting a spiritual master. We are not going to find a spiritual master. Who are we to find a spiritual master? What qualification do we have? Mlecha Westerners with no training, and even with a training. So Krishna is sending us a spiritual master. And then now, are we going to accept him or not? So anytime I see someone who somehow have been in contact with Srila Prabhupada through his movement, through his followers, through the books, through Harinam, to anything, I know that person is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, no doubt. According to this verse, he is. And now the person can accept or not. But that's between them and Krishna, because Krishna sent them a pure representative. Now they have the choice. So I'm going to stop here, even though I have so many books around me, but I'm going to go back to the verse. Teva vidantyati taranti chadeva mayam Shri Shuddha Una Shabara Apipapa Jiva Yad Yad Bhuta Kama Parayana Shila Shikshas Tiryak Jana Apikim Ushuta Dharanaye. Surrendered soul, even from groups leading sinful lives such as women, the laborer class, the mountaineers and the Siberians, or even the birds and beasts, can also know about the science of Godhead and become liberated from the clutches of the illusory energy by surrendering into the pure devotee of the Lord and by following in their footsteps in devotional service. I also want to read the last paragraph of his purport. It said, so a realization of the science of Godhead and relief from the unnecessary, useless struggle for existence, unnecessary, useless struggle for existence. If we could remember that sentence, unnecessary, useless struggle for existence are not at all difficult for the willing candidate. For the willing candidate, Krishna gives everything. He gives his pure devotee, he gives himself in the form of the Bhagavatam, he gives himself in the form of the Maha Mantra, he gives himself in the form of his deities. He helps us so much. So if we need to be a willing candidate. But they are very difficult for a person who are not surrendered soul, but only simple, profitless speculators. Hare Krishna. I am happy to hear from you about your realization, sharing, comments, questions,
Hare
criticism. Hey.
So a comment/realization and a question. In the first paragraph of the purport, a sinful soul cannot approach the Lord directly, but such a sinful man can very easily approach a pure devotee of the Lord. And if one agrees to put himself under the guidance of such a devotee, he can also understand the signs of God. And so this made me think of, like, in Christianity, how it's Jesus is the way. Like, that's like, Jesus is the way, Jesus is the way. And like, that's like the thing. Have you accepted Jesus as your savior? And I would struggle to understand, well, why is Jesus put before God? Or sometimes like, well, Jesus is God. And so this purport for me contains both, where it says somewhere the spiritual master is the bona fide representative of God, is as good as God himself. And then one can't approach the Lord directly, but needs to approach the pure devotee. So this helped me to understand this principle, this phenomenon in Christianity. And it's like really satisfying, because it's been this, I've known about Christianity much longer than Krishna consciousness. And that's always something that never made sense to me. Why is Jesus the way? Like, and like it being, like, sometimes that's taken to mean, yeah, if you do anything other than Jesus, then you're, these Hare Krishnas, they're going to hell or whatever. But it makes so much sense right now. How come he's the way? Yeah, because if anybody's coming in like you said, if anybody comes in contact with Srila Prabhupada, they're disciples of Srila Prabhupada. If somebody comes into contact with Jesus, then they're disciples of Jesus, and then maybe they accept it or not, or I don't know, whatever the relationship is. But that Jesus being the spiritual master, he is the way. It's not like, let me just kind of do it my own way. So this was a realization that
it was really clarifying for you. Yeah. Really clarifying question that you had for a long time about Christianity, and now Christ is the way. And is he God? Is he not God? And how come we need to accept him? And now with this verse and purport, where it's clearly that Krishna sent a bona fide representative, and by surrendering to that representative, then even a sinful man can be liberated. Then you understand all about the position of Lord Jesus Christ.
Yes. And then my question is, so in the actual verse, it says, surrendered souls, even groups leading sinful lives, and then gives several examples. First one being such as women. What does it mean that women, by default or in general, lead sinful lives?
Yeah. So I knew someone would ask that question. So, it's like understanding our position. It's always understanding our position. And here, my sense is that it's speaking about, Lord Brahma is speaking. Lord Brahma is speaking to Narada. And Lord Brahma is speaking from the complete vision of the universe. Lord Brahma is coming from a place of understanding the different caste and division of human society. How not every human is equal. No, not every human is equal. We are equal on a spiritual level, on a material level. We are not. Some people are good at something. Some people are not good at something. Some people have their senses that are way more agitated than someone else. We're just not equal. So Brahma is coming from a place of looking at, in a sense, the human society with with the view of the different varnas, and in those different varnas, and there is the three higher varnas, and women are outside of that, and so women usually will have their senses more agitated than a Brahman, or that, like within that society. We are not looking at, he's not looking at the Western society of 2020. That he put it in one group. They're outcasts, they're outside, they're just all sinful. We are all sinful. Like there is no reason to look. But if we step out of that, if we look at a society where things are regulated according to the Veda, and we look at the society of human being according to the Varna Shram Dharma, then within that society, women will have a tendency to have more desire for clothing, desire for jewelry, desire for children, like more lusty desires that will lead them to like a sinful, in a sense of a life that's more separated from Krishna because of their desire, sinful desire. So we are not looking at the Western society, that's not what we are saying, but within that society of elevated being that are really prone to be capable of doing austerity, sacrifice, then there is a difference between the body, like the vehicle being a woman and the vehicle being a man. And within that society, the vehicle called woman will have a tendency to be more lusty and more desiring thing than within that society than the men of that society. And that's why it's like women are then all the ones that are outcast. Yeah. It's like they are all on the same levels, and then there is no more difference. When you step out of the higher class, then there is no difference between the woman body or the man body anymore. It's all sinful, basically. It's all merged in one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Any other question, comments? Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you.